All right. Oh, we're live already. How about that? Wow, that was
Yes, we
quick.
are. How you
All
like
right.
that?
Well, good evening to all our Diamond devotees, and welcome to the second episode of the Baseball Bums. I am Benny Scala, aka The Playa. You may know me from the Dan and Benny in the Ring podcast. I got to do that. That's right. Now,
There you go.
unbeknownst to many, though, I also co-wrote that great Loggins and Messina hit from 1972. Your daddy don't dance because your mama's got him by the pole. Not too bad for a senior in high school, right, Jimmy?
you, you are one special kind of pervert. I kind of like it.
You
Go
got
ahead.
a gift, my friend. And here
Oh
with
boy.
me to share his huge love of baseball is the star of the Monty and the Pharaoh show, which can be seen every Thursday night on this channel. The man who has the key to PCB, and of course, the one and only Jimmy Pharaoh. Jimmy, how are you, my friend?
Good, brother. Good. Slap together another great program tonight for the folks at home. So let's do it.
Kind of cobbled it together, so to speak. So, Jimmy, we're here to talk tonight about something that is debated endlessly amongst baseball fans, and that is who and who should not get into the Baseball Hall of Fame. If you love to be abused, all you got to do is go on Facebook, go on any baseball page, type in Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame, and watch the combustion instantaneously, right? Well, we're not going to do that, but what we're going to do is we're going to chat about some contemporary ball players as well as some fairly recent ones in the past and whether or not they're Cooperstown worthy or not. And we did a lot of tossing of names, actually a lot of tossing of names back and forth. You and I kept texting names. Hey, what about this guy? What about this guy? You know, by the time we were said and done, we decided to make this a 4-part episode.
Sure.
And tonight we're going to look at the pitchers and catchers. Next week, infielders. Following week, outfielders. And then finally on week 4, we're going to look at some managers. So you ready, Jimmy?
Yeah, I'm ready, but let me just get this in quick as a disclaimer for both of us.
Okay.
This is coming off the heels of the Baseball Bums episode 1. You want to integrate all the Negro League records? Well, we've just decided to take another look then, in that case, on a bunch of ball players who may or may not be Hall of Famers. So there you go. That's the disclaimer.
Totally agree. So let's look at some contemporary and the catchers that I have I have 2. Not really contemporary because they both retired within the last couple of years, but guys that I think are surefire, first ballot Hall of Famers. And the first guy is Yadier Molina. God, let me just rattle off the stats real quick. Guy has 9 Gold Gloves, 2 World Series rings, 1,000 plus RBIs, lifetime 277 batting average, 10 times All-Star, 2,184 games behind the plate, and a partridge in a pear tree.
Yeah.
Could he have done any more?
He's a shoo-in. He's
first ballot, right?
He should be. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer in my book. What's not on that stats, although stats you read, the fiery guy that he was.
Right.
This guy was a leader. Oh, my God, he was a lunatic. Clearly first ballot the whole way. Champion, did everything you could at the position. He has very few peers, very few.
And had a couple of brothers who caught, right? Benji was one of them. I can't remember the other guy's name.
Benji caught for years and years, man.
Right.
Benji had a very long career. He was a pretty solid catcher. Solid. Yeah. Obviously not Hall of Fame. Otherwise, we'd be, probably discussing him seriously. But he was a very serviceable hand. There you go.
We love that word, serviceable.
Yeah, we do.
It's a good word. So the other guy is Buster Posey. Won an MVP, Rookie of the Year, batting title, Gold Glove, 3 World Series, lifetime 302 batting average.
Buster Posey is probably my favorite catcher in the last 20 years. I think Buster Posey is absolutely a Hall of Famer. A somewhat shortened career. He did get injured, et cetera, et cetera. We know that he had to stop playing and stuff, but Buster Posey was everything you want from a catcher. The 302 batting average and the postseason, rings and everything, that puts it over the top for me personally. I think Buster Posey did enough. I would actually be pretty angry if he's not elected into the Hall of Fame at some point. That's a Hall of Famer. Buster Posey.
Totally agree. And I got to tell you, I mean, a batting title for a catcher is a right. I mean, how often does that happen? Right.
He's a 302 lifetime batting average. Buster Posey was absolutely great. Great catcher. I liken him to Munson sometimes when I look at the kind of catcher and statistically, although to Munson's credit, Buster Posey was not as good defensively, but Buster Posey is still a Hall of Fame catcher. No doubt in my mind.
Well, perfect timing. You brought up Thurman Munson because I had, a list of catchers who have not made it to the Hall of Fame, but we may or may not think that some of these guys should be
right.
in. And first guy is Thurman Munson.
Hmm.
MVP, Rookie
Yeah.
of the Year, 3
Yeah.
Gold Gloves, 2 World Series, 357 postseason batting average, 6
Hmm.
times in the top 25 for the MVP voting. Captain of the New York Yankees. What else?
Yeah.
What else? I mean, that's a pretty damn good resume.
He did enough. A lot of people hold the fact that he died young against him and that he should have accumulated more numbers. I don't think that that's fair in this case. I think a decade of dominance, which he did. It was a decade of dominance. Thurman Munson's one of the 3 greatest catchers from the decade, and it happened to be a decade where you had an explosion of great catchers. That doesn't really occur too much in previous years. You can probably say Berra and Campanella, but there's not too many. There's not too many time periods where catchers were running wild, brother, and they were definitely running wild in the '70s between Bench, Fisk, and Munson. Munson did enough. It's just a decade of dominance between the MVP, the Rookie of the Year, the postseason heroics, the
Gold
357
Gloves. Yeah.
postseason, the Gold Gloves. You don't run on them. It was not a good idea to run on Munson. I've said it before. You're not. It's not a good idea. And a true captain, the man who filled Lou Gehrig's shadow with class and dignity, and somehow wound up basically as beloved as Lou Gehrig to his fan base. That is one of the greatest catchers ever, and if I want a leader, he's probably the first guy I'm picking.
Well,
So that's a Hall of Famer.
when we were chatting earlier on the phone, and I said if I was, we were choosing sides for a baseball game. Yeah, I'm the manager. I got 3 guys left. I'm looking at 3 guys. I got Munson, I got Fisk, and I got Ted Simmons. I'm
Right,
choosing Munson 100
right.
times out of 100.
Well, I get it because Munson did all things better in his prime than they did. If you're looking for a high average, if you're looking for a responsible situational hitter, if you're looking for someone who's completely even keeled in the clutch, it's Thurman. That's all there is to it. Thurman, I'm still marveling at the 430-foot shot he hit in the ALCS playoffs against Kansas City in the late '70s. The guy was absolutely clutch. There's no way around it. And you were going to get a great at bat out of him. He wasn't just looking for a home run. That was a situational hitter who could go the other way. Oh my God. What a great hitter. Catchers usually don't hit 292 career either.
Right.
That's not the norm either. Thurman Munson was a great baseball player.
And not to say that Fisk and Simmons were not, like, I think they were very, very good.
Simmons was great. I mean, if
Yeah.
you want a batting average, Simmons is superior to Fisk, Bench, and Munson. Simmons had a better career batting average than
A
all
lot
of
of
them.
ribbies too, right?
Simmons was a monster. He was a
Yeah.
stud. He
He's a
just wasn't.
masher.
I guess he wasn't sexy. Fisk, Bench, and Munson all were very sellable names. I guess maybe there was something about Ted Simmons, perhaps, who was his personality that he
Yeah.
flew under the radar a little bit. But still, you're talking about 4 of the greatest catchers in the history of this game between the 4.
Absolutely. We already got some discussion in the chat room, but it's
Sure.
it's for another day. You got Bonds, McGuire, Sosa. We're just talking pitchers and
Right.
catches
Yeah,
right
we're
now.
just going to
So
stick to. Yeah, we'll get to the outfielders in a couple
otherwise,
of
we'll be here
episodes.
till tomorrow morning, and
Right.
Mike won't like us very much. But how about
No.
another guy that we talked about?
Yeah.
Played from the early '60s to the mid '70s. Catcher for the Tigers. Number 5, Bill Freehand. 11
Right.
times All-Star, 5 Gold Gloves, a World Series, and three top 10 MVPs, and 9 consecutive All-Star games.
Right.
Guy was like
Right.
very good, bordering on great.
Yeah. Well, it's funny in reflection. And again, going back to our disclaimer about, well, since you're going to start integrating and allowing, all sorts of other things to be involved in your official statistics, I'm forced to reevaluate Bill Freehand. I think he was overall an 11-time All-Star overall selected, and he only played 13 years as a full-time starter. So 11 out of his 13 years as a starter, Benny, he's an All-Star. He's in the All-Star game. At the time that he retired, and this is kind of like the real stat that hits me. At the time that he retired, Bill Freehand had 200 home runs and over close to 800 RBIs career-wise. Only 2 catchers in the history of the American League at that time when he retired as catchers had more home runs and RBIs. Do you know who they are?
Well,
Yogi Berra, and Bill Dickey.
Right.
This is where Bill Freehand sat at the end of his career. He had more home runs than every other catcher. If your name's not Bill Dickey or Yogi Berra, he's got better numbers than you. That's like 100 years. The baseball got started in the 1870s, basically, right? I mean, oh my God, that's pretty impressive. So between the 11 selections out of 13 years as a starter, and the fact that when he retired, if your name's not Berra or Dickey, you're basically the guy in your league. I think we're looking at a Hall of Famer.
I would
Yikes.
agree, and if I don't know how it would work at this point. I mean, he's past the Veterans Committee. How would he even get? How would he get in now?
I don't think he will. I think that you get lost in the cracks, and unless there's somebody on the Veterans Committee who brings you up passionately, you're basically got no shot now.
I think you get 15 years to get it get elected by the
Right.
Veterans Committee. But what a
Right.
shame, because the thing is too, as time goes on, memories kind of fade, and there aren't going to be guys like us who actually remember this guy and appreciate what a high level ball player he was. If you're like one of the top 2 or 3 players at your position in the major leagues for an entire decade,
Right.
to me that's Hall of Fame.
I think I tend to agree with that. Also, keep in mind that Bill Freehan hit all those home runs during the 60s. And that was the hardest time to be a hitter, especially towards the late 60s. He had a great season in 1968, the year of the pitcher. I looked at his numbers. I was like, wait a minute. This guy, I think he had over 20 home runs and over 80 RBIs during 68 when
And
nobody was hitting.
Was that the year that Yaz won the batting title with a 301 average?
Right.
That was it, right?
No,
Okay.
actually, no. That might have been 67 when he actually won the Triple Crown somehow with a 301 average.
No, I think he was. I think he was at 326.
Okay, all right. At least he did
and
that.
then he followed it up with a 301. But yeah,
Okay.
I mean, what a year that was. That's
Interesting.
Here's 31 wins.
Here's another amazing thing too. The battery of Freehan and Mickey Lolich were the most used batter. They had over 324 games together. That was the most in the history until recently. I think just recently somebody passed it. Might have been Molina and Wainwright or something like that. But it's a crazy record that him and Lolich together were like basically the most used battery in the history of the game.
Yeah, very underappreciated guy. So moving on to Hip Hip Jorge, Jorge Posada, 5-time All-Star, 4 World Series, lifetime 273 batting average, 275 homers, 1,065 RBIs.
Right. Well, here's and a lot of these guys we're going to say are going to get in, and you'll probably notice that. But there are going to be some guys that are not going to get in that we're going to cover tonight. But so far we're on a bit of a roll with the guys who should get in. As far as Posada goes, here's a real simple fact. Never mind all those All-Star games. Never mind all those championships. Jorge Posada from the year 2000 to 2011. Okay, you're talking about 12 seasons, if you think about it. You include 2000, you count up to 11. That's 12 seasons. Jorge Posada hit more home runs and knocked in more RBIs in those 12 consecutive seasons than any other catcher in the major leagues. Most people may not know that or realize that, but Reggie Jackson does know that. Reggie Jackson, see, that's why there's a chance someday that Jorge might get in, because Reggie might have some sway with the Veterans Committee, because Jorge Posada is a Hall of Famer. That's all there is to it. You cannot lead the major leagues in home runs and RBIs at that position, a catching position, win those rings, and do what he did, have the most home runs and RBIs in a 12-year span, and not be a Hall of Famer. I'm not getting that. All right. He had great power for a catcher. He had great run production for a catcher. He was a great leader. Let's talk about his fiery temper. Okay. Outside of Paul O'Neill, there wasn't a guy who gave more of his shit inside the locker room. Posada was a leader. All right. So to me, Jorge Posada, I agree with Reggie Jackson on that one. That's a Hall of Famer.
To me, anybody who can play at a very high level in the most pressurized city in the world, and not only play at a very high level, but in his case, you got all those rings. I mean, I can't imagine anyone would protest when when I'm going to say when he gets in. I think at some point the Veterans Committee is going to vote him in.
Well, he seemed like a player that would fly under the radar. You know what I mean? We had a lot of big, sexy names during the time that he played his career, but year after year, you could pencil him in for 2080. Basically, you knew you could.
275, right? I mean,
yeah, you knew you could, and you knew that he would get big hits. I still remember, how he had that courageous at bat against Pedro in Game 7 of the 2003 ALCS, and he just managed to get enough of that ball to loop it into the shallow center field and stretch it into a double. I mean, the guy was a clutch ball player. That's all there is to it. And with that home run and RBI production in that 12-year period, to be the best at his position in the majors, that's a Hall of Famer. Sorry.
Every single guy we talked about so far, Jimmy, if there's one word that I could use to describe him, They're gamers. Every one of these guys are gamers.
Yep.
The other day, Gleyber Torres didn't run out a ball at first base.
Right.
Can you see any of these guys doing something like that?
No, I'm actually very disappointed in Gleyber right now. I think Gleyber is a much better ball player than he gets credit for. I think he's had a pretty good Yankee career too.
Right.
I get frustrated with Gleyber a little bit. I hate that every year everybody's on his case. I think he's been a pretty decent ball player for us over the years.
A lot of talent. I mean, potential. Yeah. Huge potential.
Yeah. Yeah, I still have some hope for Gleyber. I'm sure he got the message. I love the fact that Stroman screamed at him. That's some good stuff right there. There's a pulse in the clubhouse, right?
What would Munson have done if Gleyber was on the '78 Yankees and he pulled that?
Munson would have killed him, but you know what? Munson wouldn't have been the only one. Nettles would have killed him. There would have been
probably would have been a line in the dugout.
Yeah, there would have been a couple of guys in his face right off the bat that I can think of. You know what I mean? Yeah. Right away, Munson and Nettles come to mind. I don't think Goose Gossage would have been too happy about it either.
Oh, Jesus, God, no.
So
got all about him, but yeah. How about Jimmy? How about Ellie Howard? I mean, overlooked Yankee, but has an MVP, 12 times All-Star, 2 Gold Gloves, and 4 World Series, lifetime 274 batting average.
Yeah, Elston Howard should be in the Hall of Fame. But again, look, you're talking about a 12-time All-Star, for God's sakes, who had to wait to become a catcher. Let's not forget that either. All right, he had to kind of wait. They have him play the outfield the first couple of years until Yogi was ready to step aside.
Well, and he came up kind of late. He didn't come up as a 21-year-old. I think he was like 26.
Right.
And then he didn't get to play full time. He platooned for the first, I think, until Houck became the manager in '61. Right. I think he was pretty much a platoon player. Maybe played 100 games a year. Maybe 300. Right. So, but once Houck became the manager, that's when he kind of full-time catcher, and he really flourished.
Right, and
he didn't get the long career to compile stats.
No, and to get back to our disclaimer, we're gonna include and officially integrate all the Negro League stats, and you're not gonna put the first black Yankee into the Hall of Fame with all the things he did, a 12-time All-Star. Give me a break. Elston Howard's a great, and he's part of the Dickie Berra Howard Munson great catching lineage that took decades before we could put Posada in that. After Munson's death, it took years to fill that hole that Munson had left. Oh my God! But Howard's part of that lineage. Elston Howard's a Hall of Famer.
When you think of the talent that was in the American League when Ellie Howard won that MVP,
right?
It's mind-boggling that he was, the best ball player in the American League with the guys that were in the league at that time.
I was lucky enough to be there the day that they retired Elston Howard's number. They retired Elston Howard's number and Roger Maris's number on the same day on an Old Timers Day. I was there for that. The Yankees have gotten it right. They've retired his number in Monument Park. They know what he was. But I find it hilarious that with all of this, correcting of history, the first great New York Yankee black player who was a 12-time All-Star, who won the MVP, who did everything, won championships, did everything you could do. That's not a Hall of Famer? Oh, he sure is. He sure, number 32 sure is, Elston Howard, for sure.
Before your time, but I remember the day that he got traded to the Red Sox. And back then, the Red Sox, I take it back. The Red Sox were a decent team in '67.
Sure, they got to the World Series.
They were. But I don't.
Howard was part of that.
He was, but I don't think his heart was in it. I think that he was a Yankee.
He was a Yankee. Yep.
Now here's the name that you gave me, which I would not have thought of. But good name, Lance Parrish, 8-time All-Star, 3 Gold Gloves, 1 World Series, 324 home runs.
Right.
Huge.
I'm really torn about this one because he had so many great things he did in his career. And when he retired, he was in the top 5 home runs in the history of American League catchers. I'm pretty sure about that. He did a lot of great things. I think the batting average stops him, honestly, because I think his career batting average was 252. I'm not positive about that, but I think that the batting average stops him. I'm very borderline. Benny, why don't you give your opinion on him first before I make up my mind fully? I'm very borderline with him. The average is getting in my way.
I would say that would be if he was a 275, 280, I'd be more inclined to say yes. I would say no, only because of the the
Yeah,
average.
me too. And that's the only thing that stops it, to tell you the truth. Because, like you said, if he had been up in the 270 area, he did enough. 8 All-Star games, Gold Gloves, championship,
Yeah, he
all
did it
those
all.
home runs. Really, really a much better player than he's given credit for. We never talk about him,
Right.
and
Again, like I
we
said,
should.
I'm compiling my list. I would not have thought of that name, but that's a great
Right.
name.
So
How about
we both agree, though, real quick, that he's not getting in.
no, no. And the
Okay, so
next
we
guy
have
I
our
would
first
say,
not getting in before everybody thinks we're just putting everybody
yeah,
in.
I would say probably this next guy, probably I would not vote to get in either, but kind of close. Gene Tennis, 4 World Series, 1972 World Series MVP, 201 home runs.
Right.
Good catcher.
Excellent catcher. Definitely all-star level for the time he played. His batting average is even worse career. It's like 241. I can't do it. Gene
Yeah.
Tennis, very good player. If I was the Oakland A's, they probably retired his number. I don't know for sure, but I would think that they would. He's a great Oakland A. Should probably be in the Oakland A's Hall of Fame if they got one, which they probably do. But no, I can't do it. I can't do it. Excellent ball player for a stretch, but 241 career average. There's not enough going on around that resume to put that in. So sorry, Gene. You're
Yeah.
excellent, but no.
Now I have these under honorable mention,
Yeah.
but a couple of these I think, like Manny Sanguillen.
Yeah.
I would really give a lot of consideration to Manny Sanguillen.
Mm-hmm. Manny Sanguillen, okay, there's a couple of things you could say in his defense. It was very hard for Manny to get a gold glove back in those days because he's going up against Johnny, correct? Uh, if this doesn't tell you about, how good Manny was, though, from 67 to 75, Johnny Bench was elected the starting catcher for the National League All-Star team every single season except for one, the 1971 All-Star game. That went to Manny. Manny actually got the All-Star nod in 71. So it gives you an idea that Manny was much, much better than people probably remember. The most impressive thing about him was his 296 career batting average. He was very, very good hitter. Not a Hall of Famer, though. He didn't do enough. He has a couple of rings. He's got that. He has the All-Star game selection that he got to start that one time over Johnny. But just
Top 20 in the MVP 4 times, which that's not too bad,
good
right?
player, really good player. I can't do it though.
Decent postseason.
Yeah, I can't do it though, and I hate to be a nerd about it. If he had maybe pushed it over 300 a better lifetime, I would have probably have considered it a lot more. It's funny how that works sometimes. I just
Yeah.
don't think the numbers. I just don't think the numbers were big enough. He didn't have big enough numbers. He was a modest production hitter with a really good batting average, but I can't do it. No, not a Hall of Famer.
Another name that you gave me that I would not have thought of, but is
Right.
Jim Sundberg. Great
Right.
defensive catcher, right?
Right. Right. On the glove alone, he deserved consideration on the glove alone, but he didn't do enough offensively and he didn't dominate defensively even longer. Like, let's say he had 12 gold gloves. Be kind of hard to ignore that, you know what I mean? But for that 6-year period where he was the best defensive catcher, he was defensively Hall of Fame worthy, but he's not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and during his Gold Glove reign, though, he was, one year hit 291, 278, 275, 273, 277, and then
Right.
that was it, though. Then he's in
Right.
the 220s the rest of his
Right.
career. Wasn't with a 248
Right.
average. Kind of hard to
Right.
get a 248 guy in the Hall of Fame, right?
You're not getting him in. Definitely
No.
not.
And then the last name I have here is Bob Boone.
Okay. Tell me about him. What do you got for him?
So Boone, what do we got for Boone? Boone actually had 7 Gold Gloves, 1 World Series, 254. I mean, again, kind of.
Nope, same deal. Sorry, Bob. Bob was an excellent catcher. He was.
Yeah, again, if he would have had a dozen Gold Gloves, no brainer, like a Molina, or if he was a masher, if he was hitting, 30 bombs every year. But he's got what has he got? 105 homers, 826 ribbies. Played for 19 years.
Yeah, good player. Not great.
Yeah, 311 postseason batting average, not too bad. Yeah. But yeah, he's like one of those. What do they call him? The Hall of Very Goods, right?
Right. Yeah, he was very good. Very good.
So we got Yadier, yes. Buster, yes. Thurman, yes. Freehand, Jorge, and Elston, all yeses, right?
I believe so, and I think that that's more than fair. They all did enough. They did.
I would, if I had a ballot, I would vote for every single one of them without hesitation.
Yep, they're all there. They did enough.
All right. Well,
Not
moving
bad
on
with
here.
the catchers. Not bad. Not bad.
Yeah, no. All right. We finished catchers in 25 minutes. So, and this one will take a little bit longer because we got a lot more names. Pitchers. So, first guy, Clayton Kershaw, 210 wins, 2.48 lifetime ERA, lifetime 1.00 whip, walks and hits and innings pitched, Gold Glove, World Series, MVP, 3 Cy Youngs. He's 5th all-time in WHIP. He's 41st all-time in ERA, which is not too bad, right? I want to ask you a question. There was a guy that was number 17 all-time in ERA that doesn't really get a lot of accolades as a pitcher, but he somehow managed to win 94 games with a 2.28 ERA. And, oh, by the way, he hit 714 bombs.
Oh, the Babe.
So anytime anyone mentions Shohei Ohtani and tries to put him in the same breath no, please don't insult me.
No, it is insulting. Babe Ruth was a Hall of Fame pitcher before he ever picked up the bat.
Now, I mean, there was a couple of seasons where if they had a Cy Young, I think he would have picked it up.
Of course he would have picked it up. He was great. You know, I watched his windup. Did you ever watch Babe Ruth actually pitch? Wow.
Yeah.
Really wild windup. He went overhand twice during the motion. He'd start there, he'd swing his arm back, and he'd come back up over the top. It was but it's amazing though when you see him in mid stride throwing the pitch. What beautiful form he had.
He
really did.
Not a power pitcher.
Nobody talks about that. What fantastic form he had. No wonder he was a great pitcher. The balance was perfect. You know, for a big tubby guy. Oh my God, could he throw? He could throw. He was perfect to watch pitch.
Yeah, and again, not a power pitcher, but didn't strike out a lot of guys, but just
didn't have to.
Just got everybody out, which is
he just went after them. That was basically, he was a good control pitcher. He had no walk issues. The guy put the ball in play and let the defense take care of it.
Right.
Fantastic pitcher.
So Kershaw, I say definitely in. I mean, he's kind of at the tail end of his career. I don't think he even has pitched this year, but with those kind of stats, with the 3 Cys and the the MVP, the Gold Glove, you name it. I think he's a shoo-in.
I think Clayton Kershaw is definitely a Hall of Famer. We can no longer look at the old 300 win type situation.
No, not with 32 starts a year.
Yeah, the pitchers are not the same anymore. It's not the same kind of game. The pitchers are handled completely differently, for better or for worse. That's just the way it is.
Right.
Clayton Kershaw is the greatest of his generation. He's won enough games. Numbers do still count, but I almost consider 200 to be the new ceiling. In a lot of ways, you got to do something really.
I think 200 is now the new 300. Yes.
Yeah, it's become the new 300 is 200, but Clayton Kershaw is absolutely a Hall of Famer.
How about Max Scherzer? 215 wins, 2 World Series, 3 Cy Young awards. Kind of hard to keep somebody like that out.
I think Max Scherzer is a Hall of Famer. I do. Again, this generation of pitchers, he's cleared the 200 wins. He's got the awards. He's got the championship with the Nationals, correct? He's got the championship.
He's got 2 World Series, yeah.
Yeah. He's a winner. He's a great winner, and he's one of the best of his time period. It's funny. The Mets fans obviously look back with disdain, I guess, during his time here because the team failed. But if you look at his numbers, he didn't fail. No. He did pretty good.
Right.
He's still pretty good. I think he's a Hall of Famer. I like his nuttiness also. I feel like every team should have somebody like that. But Scherzer, to me, is a Hall of Famer.
Another to me, shoo-in, Justin Verlander, 260 wins, 2 World Series, 3 Cy Youngs, MVP, Rookie of the Year. Another guy that's done it all.
It goes to show and enhances and hammers home the point that 300 wins is no longer the barometer. Because if a guy like Justin Verlander, who has been great for how long has Justin Verlander been cranking out the wins year after year?
2005.
And you're talking about he's only got 260 for his career. He feels to me like a 330 career game winner, doesn't he?
Well, I mean, these guys are getting the ball 32 times a year.
Right.
And they get at most years, they get their 100 pitches, which may take them maybe if on a good day into the 7th inning. So you're not going to have a lot of decisions. Maybe out of 32 starts, you got maybe 23 decisions.
Right.
So
Right.
18-5 is a great season, but that's not going to get you 300 wins.
No, it's not. But to me, this is the greatest pitcher probably of his time period is Justin Verlander. He's the man. He's the Tom Seaver. He's whatever you want to call him, different kind of pitcher, but the end result is the same. So to win 260 career games in the ring and you know the championships and blah blah blah, whatever he's done, everything he's done, he's clearly sailing right into the Hall of Fame.
Right. So we agreed first three guys easy, right?
I think so. I believe so.
I think this next one's going to be a little bit more difficult. So
sure.
Jacob deGrom.
Oh, God. Here we go.
Rookie of the year.
Yeah.
Rookie of the year. 2 Cy Youngs. Lifetime 2.53 ERA.
Ridiculous, right?
Lifetime 0.99 WHIP, which is second all time.
It's ridiculous.
Of all pitchers that have pitched over 1,000 innings.
Right.
Here's the problem, though.
Oh, here we go.
84 wins.
Yeah. Can't do it. I can't do it. As much as I want to do it, because I know that he was basically Pedro Martinez. I'm talking ERA. You know what I mean? He was basically Pedro Martinez his entire career. I can't do it. 84 wins is not. He's a starting pitcher, Benny. I can't do it. Just hurt too much. Just hurt too much. Now, at the age of 36, if he somehow pulls a Jamie Moyer, right, and figures out a way to throw and be effective without wrecking himself for the 800th time, whatever's wrong with him, because there's always something wrong with him. If he pitches to like 45 and he gets me 150 career wins or something, then I may reevaluate this. But that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You know, so Jacob deGrom, as great as he is, I can't put in a guy with 84 career wins. I can't do it. What do you think?
Yeah. What was the movie Christmas Story when they got the package and the father said it's from Italy because it says Fragile, right? Jacob deGrom is Fragile. I mean, I joke around that he should be the poster boy for Vagisil because he's too
right.
I don't think he's a gamer. I don't know. I mean, maybe he's legitimately hurt, but the guy has started. Let's see, 44 games in this decade. 44 games. There's no way they get you in the Hall of Fame. I agree. If the guy somehow maybe he reinvents himself and relies less on the power and more.
I doubt it. I doubt it. You know what I mean? I mean, J.R. Richard all those years ago gave us a season or two where he looked like Nolan Ryan.
Oh yeah.
But at the end of the day, if you don't accumulate, you got to accumulate something. And I thought about this as deGrom's career's gone on. I'm like, dude, you stop getting hurt. You're wrecking your Hall of Fame chances. So no, he's not a Hall of Famer. Oh, that's painful. But 84 wins, that seals it for me.
It's funny. Us being wrestling guys, and we do we talk about the what if. Right at the top of the list is Magnum TA, right? Gino Hernandez, the two big what ifs, right?
Yeah.
Jacob deGrom to me is the what if. Like, what if this guy stayed healthy?
Right. I agree. What if El Duque had kept it together for 10 plus years?
Right.
Another guy I think about all the time. El Duque was lights out. And then I don't know what happened. There. He kind of like fell off a cliff, Hard to figure these things out sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. So this guy, Craig Kimbrell, right? Rookie of the Year, World Series, 435 saves, which is fourth all time.
Right.
He's got a .99 WHIP in 15 seasons. Now, as a reliever, he doesn't have the 1,000 innings, so he doesn't qualify. But, I mean, and in 15 seasons, a 165 batting average against and 14.1 strikeouts every 9 innings. I mean, to me, those are Hall of Fame stats. The problem is, to me, the problem is he doesn't stick with it. Like, why doesn't he stick with the team? He's been with. Let me see. I want to tell you real quick here. Go to my handy dandy reference guide here. He has been with. He started strong, 5 years with the Braves, but he's on his 8th team now with the Orioles.
Right. That's okay. That's okay. That none of these things deter me. He's got 35 career saves. What's his lifetime earned run average?
His is 2 point. Let's see.
2.48 or some crap like that.
2.40. Yeah, 160.
2.40.
Mind-boggling. 165 batting average against.
No, that's Benny. That's a Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer, and as far as all those teams he played for, Hey, see Goose Gossage. Ask me if I
Right.
care.
True. Very, very
Goose
true. Good
Gossage
point.
played 25 years with about half the league. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But this guy, year after year, I looked up his stats because you brought him up to me earlier today. I was like, let me take a look at this guy. Oh my God. How many oh my God seasons did this guy have?
Yeah.
I'm sorry he's not a household name and he's not super sexy and all this other shit. That is a Hall of Famer. That guy's a machine. You know, I'm
If
surprised
you could,
over all these years the Yankees never picked him up.
right,
It's like, why
right.
didn't you never pick him up? You know, oh my God.
Well, and there's
Hall of
only
Fame.
right now there's three guys. Only three guys have more saves than him, who are Lee
Right.
Smith, Trevor Hoffman, and Mo, and that's
Right.
it. Short
Come
list.
on. Nah, that's a Hall of Famer, man. Mr.
Yeah,
Kimbrell, hats off.
and he's still going strong. I think he's got 18 saves
Yes, he is.
in a half season for the Orioles.
Yes, he's going to
He
get over
might get
500
might get
saves.
another World Series ring
He's
this
going to
year.
get over 500 saves, right?
Easy.
Like, come
Yeah.
on. This guy's walking into the Hall of Fame. It would be ignorant to not put him in.
Well, the only thing that makes me leery, Jimmy, is, and I don't even have him on the list, but we talked about him before. John Franco, I think, has 424 saves, and
Right.
he never got a sniff for the Hall of Fame.
You know, Franco might be a little bit like Harold Baines at his position. You know, it's hard to keep a guy with 424 saves out of the Hall of Fame, but man, we'll have to re-explore. You think Franco's a Hall of Famer? I personally don't, despite all the saves.
I'm kind of biased because he went to my alma mater, St. John's University,
Right,
and he's a Long Island guy. Well, he's a Brooklyn guy, actually, but
right.
so he's got a 2.89 ERA. He's got 90 wins, 424 saves, and I don't pay a lot of attention to this. Well, his WHIP is 1.33, a little bit high, but he's only got a wins against replacement 23.7, which is 23.4, which is kind of low.
Yeah, yeah. I remember in clutch moments him spitting the bit. I remember that. I do remember that, and I remember him not being the best teammate either. If something
Right.
didn't go on good behind him, he'd show people up. It's a Hall of Fame worthy saves amount. It is 424 saves is still 424 saves, but I'm not doing it. I do not believe John Franco was one of the greatest relief pitchers of all time. I don't believe that. He was very, very good, but in a clutch moment, I would much rather have the fellow we just talked about. That's than John Franco. You know,
I would lean towards him a little bit more if he had a couple of World Series rings. Would you?
Absolutely. Like I
Yeah.
said, that is one of the major things I hold against him. I remember him spitting the bit in several clutch occasions. You know, Mike might even have a good memory about that. I know that his father's a big Met fan. Franco definitely did not always step up to the plate. You know, for lack of a better term, considering he was standing on the mound.
Right.
But I'm gonna go with no. What do you say?
I'm gonna give it a thumbs down. Like I said, if he had the rings, I'd probably give it to him. But much as I hate to, because local guy, St. John's guy, great pitcher. I mean, but just not
yeah. He was excellent, but
I'm not very
doing it.
good. Yeah, all very good. All right, so now we go back in the past a little bit. Not too far. We got Zach Greinke, 225 wins, 6 Gold Gloves, 2 Silver Slugger awards. Lifetime 225 batting average.
I'm gonna say no, and the reason why I say no is while the win total is impressive, and he did have a stretch where he was really, really good. I don't believe he ever won 20 games. They're obviously good defensively. I can't do it. His lifetime ERA was almost 4. I don't know if you know that. I think it was like 3.91. Pretty high lifetime ERA. If he had done more and been a little more healthy, perhaps I would have done this because, I didn't mind Jack Morris's lifetime ERA being high, but look at all the things Jack Morris did. My God, winning championships with 3 different teams, being the ace of 3 different teams that won championships, doing what Morris did against Schmaltz in that amazing 11 inning or 10 or 11 inning World Series game, probably the best World Series game I've ever seen, where they, they beat the Braves, the Twins beat the Braves. He doesn't have that sort of stuff. Zach Greinke is very good, very good.
He's
but I'm
on
not
the
putting him in the Hall of Fame.
Outside looking in, right?
I'm not putting him in.
Close, but no cigar.
Right.
Next guy is not close at all to me. Andy Pettitte, 256 wins, 5 rings, 19 postseason wins, which is number one all time.
Right.
How do you have Jack Morris in the Hall of Fame and Andy Pettitte not in the Hall of Fame?
Well, Andy Pettitte should be in the Hall of Fame, and that's not Yankee bias talking. That's numbers talking. Again, 300 is not something we can really gauge by nowadays. And during Pettitte's time, I'm sure he was one of the winningest pitchers of his career during his body of work compared to other pitchers. All those wins in the postseason was because he was on a great team. Yeah, he was on a great team because he was basically the number 2 or number 1 sometimes starter of those great teams. Andy Pettitte was, you talk about a gamer. Remember that stare? That classic stare when Pettitte would put the glove up over his face and you'd see the eyes and you knew that Andy Pettitte was locked in. You're not going to beat Andy Pettitte. Andy Pettitte was great over and over again, and he did it in New York. And sometimes George didn't always have his back. He obviously went to the Astros. How did that work out? How'd that work out? They got to a World Series. That's how that worked out.
Right.
And then he comes back to the Yankees. How'd that work out? Another championship. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? There's a reason why 46 is retired in the Bronx, and it was a real no-brainer. Because outside of Whitey Ford, if you're going to hand the ball to anybody in the postseason on the New York Yankees, it's Andy Pettitte. It really is. All sexy names aside, his history has spoken. If your name's not Whitey Ford and you're a left-handed starter for the New York Yankees, the next man is Andy Pettitte. Period. Hall of Fame, put him in.
And another guy, like, not overpowering. His ERA was a little bit high. He career gave up 9.4 hits every 9 innings. So he's a little bit on the hittable side. But you know what?
What?
He did, when it counted, he made the pitch.
He got himself out of everything all the time. Right. He never had to be bailed out. His record is as true as can be, his one-loss record. Yeah. That's exactly what he was. He was never getting bailed out. He was so consistent for how long? How long are we talking? If David Cohn had the sturdiness and stability of Andy Pettitte, could you imagine what Cohn's numbers would have been? Andy Pettitte was just unbelievable. Very consistent, a machine.
Yeah, that one is, to me, like the easiest one. And plus a 626 winning percentage.
Come on.
Right?
Come on. Anywhere he went, and he didn't go very many places, obviously, but wherever he was asked to go play, whether it was here or in Texas, guy was a stud. And his pitching mechanics were perfect, by the way. Anybody ever notice that? Never changed his motion. Never changed his motion in almost 20 years. He was just perfect. Perfect pitcher.
I always loved watching him pitch because I knew that no matter what, they were going to be in the game. And they had a great chance of winning it.
Yep. They were, and they did. They were, and they did. They were great with him. He's an absolute Hall of Famer to me. It's ridiculous that he's not in.
Right.
You compare him to a guy like Dennis Martinez. Sorry, Benny. You compare him to a guy like Dennis Martinez. You're going to tell me Dennis Martinez, who's in the Hall of Fame, was better than Andy Pettitte? No way.
Well, I mean, you just stack him up against Morris. He's got, I think, 2 more wins than Morris. His ERA is like a tad bit higher.
Right.
But he's got those 19 postseason wins, and he's got those, and his winning percentage is way higher.
Yeah.
And he's got all the rings.
He's got 5 championships. He almost won another one with Clemens in Houston.
Yep.
The guy was a stud, one of the greatest of his time.
That one's easy. How about Tommy John? 288 wins, 46 shutouts. I mean, sometimes it is the Hall of Compilation, but the guy pitched for 27 years, won almost 300, 46 shutouts. I think just based on that alone, you get him in.
I think Tommy John is a Hall of Famer. 288 career wins. Like, this is one of those things where it's like, well, he didn't win 300. Oh, come on. What, 288's not impressive enough? Now, Tommy John, I will say this much. Unfortunately for Tommy, was always on the wrong side of history when it came to championships. Tommy was on those great Dodger teams that lost to the Yankees in the 70s, and he was one of their best pitchers by far. Then he gets to the Yankees, and he's on the Yankee team that loses to the Dodgers in 81 because Fernando Valenzuela is pitching off the charts. He did enough. If the surgery wasn't enough to be groundbreaking and make his name immortal, I would think that the 200 – look, if Jim Cott is in, I understand he's got all those gold gloves. But you're not going to tell me at 288 wins that Tommy John was not as good as Jim Cott. He was better.
Yeah.
He was better, you know. So I think that Tommy John did enough to be in the Hall of Fame. Will he ever get in? I doubt it. I
Yes,
doubt it.
I agree. Sad. Another guy who, like we both agree, is an absolute stud, El Tiante, Luis Tiant. 229 wins, 49 shutouts. How do you keep a guy through 49 shutouts out of the Hall of Fame?
I don't to this day. You know, I remember when they were talking about Latin pitchers. I think Dennis Martinez was the first Latin pitcher to get in, and I kept saying to myself, "Where the hell is Tiant?" You know, I think Tiant did enough over the years. Even when he came to the Yankees as an older fella, he was still part of good Yankee teams, really good Yankee teams, and did well. The 229 wins, I think, is enough. The big game pitcher that he was, I think, is enough. I feel that Louis Tiant is, you know, a Hall of Famer. He obviously goes in as a Red Sox, but that's what he was.
Yeah,
You know, he was a
agree.
great Red Sox pitcher, one of their winningest pitchers in their history. I think Tiant's a Hall of Famer.
And it's funny because like I'm thinking of my memory with Tiant. Both he and Mel Stottlemyre came up at the end of the 1964 season. So Stottlemyre came up with the Yankees. I think he was 9-3.
Right.
But Tiant came up with the Indians, and he was equally lights out. And now there's a sad situation. Mel Stottlemyre. I mean, again, what a great pitcher.
Right.
He'll never get in the Hall of Fame, but man,
No.
oh man,
No.
he was truly an ace.
He's in the Hall of the Very Good, you know.
Yeah.
He almost reminds me of Bobby Mercer to pitchers, if you understand what I'm saying. Mercer was
Yes.
very good ball player, just like Stottlemyre was a very good pitcher. They just didn't do enough, in my mind, you know, to be in.
Yeah, I think if Mel came up at a different time, you know, and had a couple of rings, I don't think he has enough wins anyway, but he did get hurt at the end of his career. But yeah, definitely very good. But I think, you know, always on the outside looking in. How about Vida Blue, another name that you brought up? 209 wins, 6 All-Stars, MVP, Cy Young, 3 World Series, 37 shutouts.
Right.
Easily one of the best pitchers of his generation.
He was one of the best. He's a little top heavy, you know, with his stats. He had a cluster of great seasons. He's comparable to Catfish in a lot of ways, but Catfish was more consistent with the body of work, and Catfish won in two different places, New York also, as well as Oakland. I can't do it. I'm close. I want to say yes, but I can't do it just because I feel like it wasn't spread out enough. You know, it was more like, you know, hit and miss with him. He had some bad seasons too. He's close, but I can't do it. He's very, very good.
Yeah, I guess now that you say that, let me real quick. He was like great or okay.
Right.
Like, I mean, obviously his rookie season, he was 24-8.
Right. Yeah. I wonder how history would have been changed. I don't know if you remember this, but this was right around the infancy of free agency where George purchased Vida Blue for cash from Charlie Finley. Vida Blue was to join those late 70s Yankee teams. And
yes.
Bowie Kuhn squashed it. He said, you can't just buy a player. So we were not able to get Vida Blue. I do wonder sometimes what would have happened if Vida Blue had come to that late Yankees along with Catfish. He wanted to put him with Catfish. Because you imagine that starting staff. You know, you got Catfish Hunter, Vida Blue, Ron Guidry, you know, 1 year Gullett, 1 year Torres. Figueroa was winning more games than anybody, honestly, during those years, you know, as a whole. So outside of Guidry. So you would have had some pitching staff. I wonder how Vida's numbers would have turned out looking. He might have gotten another 20 or 30 wins, and we're talking about 240 wins. Now he's a Hall of Famer probably. You know what I mean? With more rings. So.
Now, didn't he, if I'm not mistaken, did he not hold out after his rookie year for more money?
You know, it's interesting. I think you're right on top of it. One of the years that they won the 3 in a row, Oakland, he had a terrible year. He was like 6-10 one of those years.
Yeah, so let me read these real quick. You know, as far as his 1-loss records, because you're spot on.
Right.
24-8 his rookie year, obviously, you know, Cy Young, MVP, everything.
Sure.
Then you go to 6-10. Then you go back to 20-9. Then you go to 17-15, 22-11.
Right.
18-13, 14-19. They almost lost 2 games. 18-10, 14-14, 14-10. Yeah.
Right. I'm not doing it. Like I said, like if he had come to the Yankees in the late '70s and cranked out a couple of 20-win seasons, or even one 20-win season and several 15-win seasons, maybe. But like he kind of faded away. And like I said, he was really, really good. He's worthy of the conversation, but he's not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I would think, in those off seasons, if he had won like maybe 17 or 18 instead of 14, just
Right,
have that consistency. But
right.
that's too erratic.
Yeah, he was a little all over the place.
Yeah. No, so we got thumbs down on him. How about Oral
Right.
Hershiser? 204 wins, Cy Young Award, Gold Glove, World Series, won the ALCS and the NLCS MVP. Has the 59 inning scoreless streak. He threw
Mm-hmm.
8 shutouts that year. 8-3,
Mm-hmm.
2.59 postseason ERA.
Yeah.
And he actually hit 356 in 1993.
Unbelievable. While Hershiser's career win total is surprisingly low with 204 career wins, he doesn't feel that way to me. He feels like a 250 career win kind of guy. I think he's a Hall of Famer, Oral Hershiser. He was absolutely the best for quite a while there. He really was, and he was a stud in both leagues, correct? You know, there was nothing he really didn't accomplish in his career. I thought he was a pitcher's pitcher. I believe that Hershiser, and you know what's funny? Well, these postseason numbers, they don't count. Of course they count. We just integrated the Negro League stats. What do you mean? Of course they count. They do count. And as we go on through the weeks, going through position by position, you're going to find out with other players, those really do count. They count. And
Yeah.
Oral Hershiser was one of the great postseason pitchers. He was great. I think Oral
Yeah.
Hershiser is absolutely a Hall of Famer.
Remember with Dan Marino, always the knock. The guy was a great regular season quarterback, no Super Bowls.
Right.
That was a knock on Peyton Manning for a long time, but then he won a couple. But
Right.
On the
Right.
flip side, you got these guys who are like very, very good in the regular
Right.
season, but they turn it up a notch in the postseason
Yeah.
when it counts the most. If you're winning an
Yep.
MVP, NLCS, and an ALCS MVP,
Yeah.
you're clutch when it matters the most.
Yeah. No, he was a winner one way or the other. And like I said, I'm glad he at least eclipsed the 200 win mark because I feel like he still has a chance. There are other guys that may not get that chance, but I feel like Oral Hershiser is a huge oversight. That guy was a Hall of Fame pitcher.
I think we're both going to agree on this next guy too. CC Sabathia, 251 wins, Cy Young, World Series, and then he was in you talk about consistency. 6 years in a row, top 5 Cy Young voting.
Yeah, I think CC's a Hall of Famer. I do. The 251 wins alone puts him in the conversation, especially during his time period. Again, 300 wins is not the reality nowadays. If you do that, you're completely the exception to what's become the norm with pitchers' body of work and total amount of wins. So you got the 251 wins, you got the Cy Young, you got the championship. You know what I mean? But on top of it, like you said, that's very important that he always figured out to be in the top 5 in the Cy Young voting year after year after year after year. He was clearly one of the top 5 pitchers for quite a while there. And
Right.
the fact that he came to New York, and let it not be lost, he comes to New York and right away there's a championship, and you know what he meant to that championship team. He was to that 2009 pitching staff what Guidry was in '78. It might not have been as spectacular as Guidry's '78 season, but CC Sabathia coming on board and Andy Pettitte coming back home were the biggest reasons probably why we won that World Series. Joe Girardi did something that wasn't normal at the time. He changed it into a 3-man postseason staff. Remember that?
Yes.
We had 3 guys. That never happened really before, that he did that. But CC was that great. So I think CC eventually, I doubt he'll have his number retired by the Yankees, but I'm pretty sure there'll be a plaque out there for him. He is one of the great all-time Yankee pitchers. I'm not sure if they'll ever retire his number. Maybe they will. We'll see. That's a Hall of Famer.
I agree. And this next one, man, oh man, this is a tough one. Ron Guidry. 170 and 91. Well, what a one-loss record, right? That's Cy Young, 2 World Series, 5 Gold Gloves, 26 shutouts. That 1978 season to me is one of the best of all time. And then in the 4 World Series, he's 3-1 with a 1.69 ERA.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
It kills me to say that. You know that because we're so biased. Because we grew up with Guidry. I can't do it. If he had cleared 200 wins, to me, it's a no-brainer. But you know whose fault this is? This isn't Ron Guidry's fault. This is goddamn George and Billy, because in 1975, Guidry wanted to come up. Guidry was called up. Guidry had one bad game, basically, maybe a couple, and was sent back down. And it stole a couple of more seasons for Guidry. And it bothers me because by the time Guidry got up to the Yankees and was part of the starting rotation, Guidry was 27 years old. So I'm so angry over all these years. I still harbor resentment towards George and Billy for not bringing this kid up sooner. How did you not know what you had there? Okay, 170 and 91 with a 1 point something in the postseason, the rings, the championships, the Cy Young, everything he did. 3 different times he won 20 games. I can't believe that it took them till he was 27 to figure that out.
I mean, did you ever see a pitcher more unhittable than him in 1978?
No.
Be hard pressed.
No. And he's my favorite all-time pitcher for the Yankees. If you're going to ask me to pick one guy, it's going to be Guidry and then probably Pettit. But, I mean, Ron Guidry was so exciting to watch. He was such had a blazing fastball. His slider was ridiculous. I mean, the guy was he was great, but he started at 27, and he had a 13-year career, and he's one of the greatest Yankee pitchers in their history, and his number was retired in Monument Park, as it should be, but he's not a Hall of Famer. He didn't accumulate enough, and it hurts to say it, but it's true.
201, like if he was at 201 with wins and maybe like one more World Series. I mean, then you're talking about 201.
I don't even think the World Series is necessary.
Yeah,
he had 2 rings, and he was the stud of those staffs.
Yeah, good postseason performance. Great postseason performance.
Yeah, it was great.
The 200 wins, I think, gets him in. It's sad. And you're right. They brought him up way too late because
that's the problem.
We wouldn't even be talking about this.
27 years old, Ron Guidry finally gets to come up. What the hell did you guys just do? You know? Whoops.
Now, here's a name that you and I talked about earlier. I think we're going to run out of time. We're going to have to finish the pitchers next week, Jimmy. This may stretch out to be more than 4 weeks. And that's not a bad thing, I don't think, because
we had a lot more names. You want to rattle them off quick?
Well, let me real quick. Billy Wagner, 7-time All-Star, 422 saves, a lifetime 2.31 ERA, 0.998 WHIP, 11.9 strikeouts for 9. Now, his last season in 2010 for the Atlanta Braves at the age of 38, he's 7-2, a 1.43 ERA, 37 saves, and he struck out 104 guys in 69 innings pitched.
Right. I mean, total shit in the postseason, though.
Billy Wagner?
Yeah, pretty much from what I remember.
Let me see.
Not too good. Not too good.
Did he?
I'm just gonna go with very close, but probably no. For the sake
I mean, right now that bears out. Let me check out the postseason
for the sake of time constraints.
Yeah. You know what, Jimmy? Yep. You got a gift, my friend. You good. You. All right. Yeah. He's 1-1 in the postseason with a 10.03 ERA.
No, shit.
1.97 whip. Yeah. Holy shit.
I'm going with I'd rather have Sparky Lyle. Next name.
11.2 innings, 21 hits. Damn. Yeah.
Nope.
So 16 hits every 9 innings. That's
not doing. If I'm not putting Franco in, I'm not putting him in.
Yeah, sorry, Billy. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Well, here are the names that we didn't get to. Saberhagen,
no.
David Cohn.
Yes.
Clemens.
Yes, obviously.
Schilling.
Yes. Give me a break.
Kevin Brown.
No. Nice numbers, but no.
211 wins, 6 All-Star World Series.
No, not doing it. He was hitting the clutch, too.
Let's just chat a little bit about this last name, Allie Reynolds from the 1950 Yankees. 6-time All-Star, 6 World Series rings, 182 and 107 record. 131 and 60 with the Yankees, 36 shutouts, 2 no-hitters in the same season. Postseason, 7-2, 2.79 ERA, and out of 9 World Series starts, completed 5 with 2 shutouts.
Well, the Yankees got it right to give him a plaque, but he's not Hall of Fame worthy. That was the day and age of the 300 win pitchers. So he had a great career, but I can't put him in the Hall of Fame. As much as I believe he, was a Hall of Fame Yankee, well, they've already given him the plaque. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to go with no.
Yeah, one of those guys. I forget who he started his career with. Was it Cleveland or Boston? And
Might have been Cleveland.
Yeah, didn't do that well. And of course, yeah, because if he's 131 and 60 with the Yankees and 182 and 107 overall, so let me do my quick Rain Man. So he was 51 and 47. Very average pitcher.
Just average. Yeah, like I said, great Yankee career, but not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys that immediately got elevated once they put the pinstripes on. Like you got a Don
and real quick, David Cone should be in 194 career wins. True, he didn't get to 200, but it's a different period. Cone was a winner wherever he went. He was a hired mercenary. How many championships did David Cone win? How many times was he an all-star during his? It wasn't a very, very long career. Let's keep that in mind. I feel that David Cone was the Jack Morris of his time period. And oddly enough, Morris and Cone overlapped when they won a ring together with Toronto. So I feel like Cone was like another Jack Morris type as far as postseason counts too. And David Cone did enough, in my opinion, to be a Hall of Famer. So there you go, Benny. I think we got everybody in.
Yeah, I guess we did. Let me just quick look at the chat room and see if there's any name that okay, they're talking about non-oral. No, I don't really see anybody. Yeah, Albert Bell.
We'll get to them.
Well, yeah, and they're mentioning names like here, Steve Carlton. Tom Jones mentioned him. It's not unusual that he mentioned him, right? But
not unusual at all.
But Carlton's in the Hall of Fame. I mean, geez.
Yes.
God,
yes, of course.
One of the greatest pitchers of all time.
Of course.
What did he win? 27 and 72 for a 50-win team or something like that?
Yep. Clearly great.
Yeah, so we got it. I thought this was great. I mean, so many elite ball players who were on the outside looking in. But on the flip side, you got a guy like a Harold Baines, on the inside.
It's hard to figure these things out sometimes. Again, with Baines, you look at the career RBIs, and it's okay. I mean, the guy knocked in over 1,600 runs. I don't look at him as a Hall of Famer, necessarily, but the compiling was just so impressive. He's kind of like the Bert Blyleven, of hitters in a way.
Yeah. Another guy that, I mean, we're off the topic now, like a guy like Eddie Murray. I mean, he was very, very solid for a long, long time, but he never posted. He had very good seasons, but he just had them year after year after year. I mean,
I think Eddie Murray's a Hall of Famer one way or the other.
Eddie
Murray was always you could always pencil him in for 25 to 30 home runs and 90 to 100 RBIs. What are we talking here?
You cannot leave a guy with 1,900 and something ribbies out of the ball.
It's going to be really interesting as we get to the other
home runs and 3,000 hits.
No, it's going to be really interesting as we get to the other players down the road. But that's what we'll be covering next week as we move on to the infielders.
So guys, stay tuned next week. Jimmy, I think we pitched a complete game here,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks to Mike for producing.
Yes, absolutely. This was way more entertaining than Weekend at Bernie's 3, a.k.a. the presidential debate on Thursday night.
Oh, God.
So, for the Pharaoh, this is the Playa. We are the baseball bums. And don't forget to choke up on that wood.
Later. Choke up on that wood.